The breaking news is Donald Trump's longest-serving chief of staff in the White House, John Kelly, is now making public statements in 2 interviews today and tonight opposing Donald Trump's candidacy. Donald Trump was the stupidest major party nominee for president when he first ran for president 8 years ago. Now, at age 78, he is demonstrably even stupider. His proposals about tariffs, for example, have gone from childishly naive 8 years ago to crazily deranged now. Just on economic policy alone, Donald Trump is the stupidest and most dangerous presidential candidate in history. But the breaking news of the night is that Donald Trump's longest-serving White House chief of staff, former Marine Corps General John Kelly, has gone public in 2 interviews to warn the country against the dangers of allowing Donald Trump to win the Electoral College again. The New York Times has released audio of its interview with John Kelly saying, among other things, that Donald Trump is indeed a fascist.
Certainly, the former president is in the far right area. He's certainly an authoritarian. Admires people who are dictators. He has said that. So he certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, for sure.
74 years after General Dwight D. Eisenhower and the greatest generals in the history of combat defeated Adolf Hitler in World War II and drove him to suicide, General John Kelly still had to battle Adolf Hitler in Donald Trump's White House.
What would you say when he said to you that Hitler did a lot of good things?
Well, I tell him that. I said, first of all, you should never say that. But if you knew what Hitler was all about from the beginning to the end, everything he did was in support of his racist, fascist, life, philosophy, so that nothing he did you could argue was good. It was certainly not done for the right reason. And, but he would occasionally say that.
What would he say when you would lay that out to him?
He'd just, that would be the end of the conversation usually.
Donald Trump is the most ignorant person who has ever held the title of president in this country. And he proved that in many ways, including in his administration, not just because of his admiration for Adolf Hitler, but because of his admiration for Adolf Hitler's generals. In an article by Jeffrey Goldberg in The Atlantic, published today before the New York Times interview with John Kelly was published, this article in The Atlantic includes an interview with John Kelly about Donald Trump's admiration for Hitler and Hitler's generals, who every historian knows were actually the worst generals in the European theater of World War II. We will consider just how demented Donald Trump's admiration is for the Nazi generals who lost World War II, after some of them repeatedly participated in plots to assassinate Adolf Hitler, later in this program when Yale history professor Timothy Snyder joins us. Donald Trump, more than once in the White House, said that he wished he had Hitler's generals because he stupidly and ignorantly thought that they were better than the American generals that we have now, and better than the American generals who won World War II. He stupidly thought that Hitler's generals were more loyal to Hitler personally. John Kelly says that Donald Trump had no idea that Hitler's generals tried to repeatedly assassinate him. In the Atlantic article by Jeffrey Goldberg, there is a uniquely Trumpian statement of hatred for Mexicans, spoken by Donald Trump, but this time he was privately speaking about a Mexican-American soldier who was murdered at an Army base in the United States. When the soldier's family visited the White House, Donald Trump said this.
And if I can help you out with the funeral, I'll help you out. I'll help you out financially. I'll help you.
Of course, when the bill arrived at the White House several weeks later, according to Jeffrey Goldberg's reporting, Donald Trump did what he always does when he sees a bill. He complained bitterly. Jeffrey Goldberg reports, according to two people present at the meeting, Trump asked, did they bill us for the funeral? What did it cost? According to attendees and to contemporaneous notes of the meeting taken by a participant, an aide answered, yes, we received a bill. The funeral cost $60,000. Trump became angry. It doesn't cost $60,000 to bury an effing Mexican. He turned to his chief of staff, Mark Meadows, and issued an order, don't pay it. Later that day, he was still agitated. Can you believe it? He said, according to a witness, effing people trying to rip me off. That news of Donald Trump complaining about the cost, quote, to bury a effing Mexican came on the same day today that Donald Trump met in Florida with a group of Latino supporters. We're going to show you what President Obama had to say on the campaign trail today and what President Biden had to say and what the next possible Democratic President Kamala Harris said in her interview with Hallie Jackson today. But we begin on the campaign trail tonight with number two. We begin with vice presidential candidate Tim Walz because today, campaigning with President Obama and Senator Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin, Tim Walz delivered one of the best descriptions of the stakes in this election on the issue of Trump corruption.
Elon's on that stage, jumping around, skipping like a dipshit on these things. You know it. Think about it. Think about that. That guy is literally the richest man in the world, spending millions of dollars to help Donald Trump buy an election. Now look, they're saying the quiet parts out loud now because Donald Trump has already promised that he would put Elon in charge of government regulations that oversee the businesses that Elon runs. That's a hell of a buy. He could spend billions to make more than $10 billion on the back end. So in other words, Donald Trump, in front of the eyes of the American public, is promising corruption. That's what he's promising you. And you know what? I don't believe he keeps many promises, but he'll keep that one. I'll guarantee you he'll keep that one. But here's the good news, Madison. Donald Trump is never going to be president. Elon Musk is never going to run anything.
Promising corruption. That is exactly what Donald Trump is promising. Today in Wisconsin, President Obama said this.
He's standing there and he's swaying the Ave Maria and YMCA. And you know, the governor from South Dakota, she's standing there with this weird look on her face like she doesn't really know what's going on. She's like, it's like a hostage video. Can you imagine if Tim did that, or Kamala did that, or I did that? Now, our playlist would be better. But you would say to yourself, this is odd behavior. He called himself the father of IVF. No, I have no idea what that means. You don't either. He said January 6th was a day of love. Hey, you're going to hear this from me. Do not boo. Vote. They can't hear you boo. They can hear your vote. That's the way to send a message. So, look, my point is, you'd be worried if Grandpa was acting like this. right? You call up your brother, you call up your cousins, you say, have you noticed? But this is coming from somebody who wants unchecked power. So Wisconsin, we do not need to see what an older, loonier Donald Trump looks like with no guardrails. America's ready to turn the page. We are ready for a better story, Wisconsin.
In Detroit, Michigan, tonight, one of Detroit's most famous sons, Eminem, introduced President Barack Obama.
Words in the rhythm for you to know it's a rap. You said you was king, you lied through your teeth. For that, your feelings instead of king. Detroit! What up, though? So look, I wrote down a few things I wanted to say. I love you too. Thank you. I'm here tonight for a couple of important reasons. As most of you know, the city of Detroit and the whole state of Michigan mean a lot to me. And going into this election, the spotlight is on us more than ever, and I think it's important to use your voice. So I'm encouraging everybody to get out and vote, please. I also think that people shouldn't be afraid to express their opinions. And I don't think anyone wants an America where people are worried about retribution or what people will do if you make your opinion known. I think Vice President Harris supports a future for this country where these freedoms and many others will be protected and upheld. And here to tell you much more about that, President Barack Obama.
Hello, Detroit! You fired up? Are you ready to go? Hey, I've got to say, let me just say, let me just say, I gotta say, you know, I have done a lot of rallies, so I don't usually get nervous. But I was feeling some kind of way following Eminem. I mean, I notice my palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy, vomit on my sweater already, mom's spaghetti. I'm nervous, but on the surface I look calm and ready to drop bombs, but I keep on forgetting. One of the most disturbing things about this election, about Trump's rise in politics, is how so many of us, even good people that we know, seem somehow suddenly to be willing to set aside values that we were taught. I mean, the day after the 2020 election, thousands of mail ballots were being counted right here in this convention center. And because Donald Trump was willing to spread lies about voter fraud in Michigan, Protesters came down, banged on the windows, shouting, "Let us in, stop the count." Poll workers inside being intimidated. Earlier this month, we learned that someone on Trump's campaign told the lawyer to, quote, to find a reason to try to throw out votes, quote, even if it's BS. Hey, do not boo. Later, hold on. Later, the same staffer said, quote, make people riot. All because Donald Trump couldn't accept losing. Right now, we just saw one of the deadliest couple of hurricanes down in North Carolina, Florida. And while Biden and Harris are comforting families and trying to get aid, and FEMA workers trying to go out there, Donald Trump is making stuff up, saying that, oh, they're diverting emergency funds to immigrants, and that they're not giving it to Republican counties. And so suddenly FEMA workers, emergency workers trying to help desperate people, are worried about their own safety, and people aren't applying for aid. When did that become okay? No, look, I know you know the answer, but I want us to think about this. No matter where you stand on the issues, why would you go along with that? If your co-workers acted like that, they wouldn't be your co-workers for very long. If you had a family member who acted like that, you might still love them, but you wouldn't put them in charge of anything. You wouldn't trust them. And yet, when Donald Trump lies or cheats or shows utter disregard for our Constitution, when he calls service members who died in battle losers, when he calls fellow citizens vermin, we make excuses for it. We act like it's okay. Or at least those who say they're supporting him, they say, well, you know, he's just joking, or it's not that serious, or what, you know, as long as we win, that's how politics is played. No, it's not.
Today, NBC News' Hallie Jackson interviewed Vice President Harris.
For so many voters, we know that a huge issue for them is the economy.
Right.
It's the cost of living. I've been on the campaign trail. I hear that in the field again and again. You look at some of the numbers on this, and our new NBC News poll shows that more voters think that the Biden administration policies have hurt them rather than helped them. And I wonder, are the last 4 years an obstacle to you in this race?
Here's how I look at it. First of all, let me be very clear. Mine will not be a continuation of the Biden administration. I bring my own experiences, my own ideas to it, and it has informed a number of my areas of focus, most of which are, on, to your point, lowering costs. I am traveling the country. I am very clear. Cost of groceries still too high. The voters know it. I know it. So part of my plan includes what we need to do to bring down the price of groceries, including the work I will do dealing with price gouging, something I dealt with when I was Attorney General, something I will deal with going forward.